Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Well, isn't it hard to believe we're virtually at the end of March already, a quarter of the year been and gone. For today's video, we're going to take a look at the pens that I've been using this month. So we started off the month with the 7 pens. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to rank them from my least favourite through to my favourite pen that I used this month. Now remember, these are only being ranked against each other. Every one of these pens, I've got to be honest, is a nice pen and I enjoy writing with them. So I'm not trying to say that any are good or any are bad. I'm just trying to give my thoughts for what happened this month with the pens and the inks that are in them. So join me down on the mat and let's kickstart and look at the pen that comes in at position number 7. So here we go, let's jump straight in. Pen number 7 is this one. This is a PenBBS 456. I've got to be honest, I love the look of this pen. It's so nice to look at. I mean, of all my pens, I would say this is the best looking of the whole load. Why is this position number 7? Well, the nib just doesn't write very well. Let's take a quick look at the nib here. I don't know if you can see, but I've actually used my emery board and my micromesh on this because I've had a really bad time trying to write, especially on Clairefontaine paper. It had what I thought was baby's bottom, so I just took the emery board to try and smooth down the nib a bit. But no matter what I've done, it hasn't worked. And if anything, the nib is now worse. Even on my cheap paper, it catches all the time. And the ink flow, I mean, I could be writing. When it is writing, it's really nice. But then all of a sudden, it'll just stop. And literally, for about 5 seconds, nothing will happen. And then it'll start writing again perfect. It's really weird, so I need to take a closer look at this. Now, the issues I think it is as I said, we've got the problem with the nib, but this is a vacuum filler, and I think it's an issue with the vacuum filling system. And I think what happens is down here, there's a seal. So when the lid is screwed down, that seal goes down to stop any ink from flowing. And then I unscrew the cap here. That lets the ink flow through again because we've got some air coming in through the top, and also we release this seal here. But I don't think the seal is releasing properly because what I've found, if I jiggle it just a little bit, literally pulling it in and out, I don't know if you can see the plunger inside there, then it'll start writing again. So I'm not sure. I need to play with this. I've not had the pen that long. For the nib, what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of other PenBBS pens that I'm not really into. And I've also got a Moonman pen, which I think is the same size nib. So I'm going to try a different nib in this to see if that helps. And then I'll also have to play around with, well, let's look at that plunger. Let's see if there's anything I can do with that. But as I said, the pen itself looked absolutely gorgeous. Really is a pretty pen to look at. Now, when I did my start of the month video, someone did mention about potential staining because I was using Diamine Merlot in there, which is a fairly dark ink. Now, I don't know, again, if you can see too much. I haven't noticed any staining. So the ink was in there for a month. I've given it a good clean out, obviously. But yeah, I didn't notice anything in the way of staining. But that's only after this limited time period. So if we're looking on our sheet, the PenBBS 456, that comes in at position number 7 for this month. At position number 6, we've got this gorgeous black pen. So we're going from the white, the cloud of the 456, to this gorgeous black and red. Now this is the Picasso Premiere 916. And in there, I chose a red ink to go with this red band here. Just take the cap off there. Just look at that gorgeous nib. It's black, it matches the rest of the pen. Again, I'm not saying I don't like the pen, I do, I love it. But as I said, I had to give a ranking. So if we're looking at this pen, it looks nice and professional. It's a pen you could take to the office or to anywhere where you need to sign something official. The nib, now it was advertised as being titanium. I've got no way to verify or say that's not true, but I will say this, it is glassy smooth. It is so nice to write with. Let's again take a quick closer look here. It's not a very big nib. I would think it'd be a number 5 nib. Got a little bit of engraving here. But at the tip, you know, this is the bit which is the important part. Let me just turn this over slightly. It is so nice to write with. I haven't had to do anything to this nib. It just writes. Now, one of the issues I did find with this is obviously I've got 7 pens, so that's a pen a day. So I would use this fine, but the next time it came around to using it, which was a week later, well, the nib had dried out. And I would say it would take me about a minute to get it to start writing again. Once it was writing, it was beautiful, but we had that issue. So if it's something you're only going to use once every so often, just be aware of that. And to be honest, that was the only reason why I've put this in at position number 6. All the rest of the pens, well, they started writing fairly quickly, apart from this one. So the Pimio 916, that comes in at position number 6. Position number 5 for this month, well, it goes to this one. This is a Jinhao 997. Now this pen looks the part, and it really is a nice pen. Let me take the top off here. We'll look at that nib. Now, as you can see, we've got a 1.1 stub nib on here, so it's a fairly wide writer. The pen itself, it's metal. You can feel it. It's really got some weight to it, especially when you put that cap on. You really know that you've got that pen there in your hand. And one of the things that I do is I get my wife to write with some of the pens. And well, to be honest, every time I asked her to write this, she said, yes, it writes okay, it's just too heavy. So if you're not a heavy pen person, this is something to bear in mind. When I was actually writing with it, I did have issues with the first ink. As you can see here, I started off with Colorverse Redshift, and I don't know if it was the ink or the pen, but it was just awful to write with. It was constantly skipping. It was constantly not putting any ink on paper. Now remember, this is a stub nib, so it's a fairly wet nib, but it just didn't work. I then put Pilot Iroshizuku Momiji in it. Well, it was like chalk and cheese. That Momiji ink, it flows so nicely. The ink, it just glides out of it. It is such a pleasure to write with, and I really enjoyed writing with it. As I say, I've had to mark this down because of the issues with the Colorverse ink. And yes, I know that could be related to the ink, but in here, obviously, I'm looking at pen and ink combinations. The other thing to bear in mind, this is a 1.1 stub nib. It does half eat through the ink. You know, I was using it for a day a week, and I was going through a converter full of ink in one day. And that's why I was able to change it to the Momiji. But certainly of the two, I prefer the colouring of the Redshift. But just for flow and writing experience, that Momiji really is so much nicer. So that means number 5 goes to this pen, which is the Jinhao 997. At ranking number 4 of my pens for March of 2021 goes to this one, PenBBS 487. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know I keep saying my favourite pen and ink combination. It just doesn't let me down until this month. I've been quite disappointed with it. It's still my favourite pen, don't get me wrong. What I've been doing this month is I've been playing around with some different papers because I'm looking at doing another video in the next month or two about different papers. I'm just going to fetch this in. This is my notes. I'm going to cover them so you can't see what's coming up. This is my notes for this video. And, this is really cheap paper. Let me just hide that page because you don't need to see that. So I've been doing all sorts of drawing and writing on it. It was really cheap paper. I mean, I'm talking like it's about $2 Aussie for the notepad. But what I was finding is this PenBBS 487 on this cheap paper was so scratchy, it was unbelievable. Now, you could say, well, Gary, that's because of the paper, which yes, in a way it is, but all the other pens were writing okay on this paper. It was only this one which was causing me the problem. So as a result, I've got to take that into account. The other thing which I don't like about this pen, and I know I've said this every time I've recorded, is here. It's got a magnetic filling system. You can see the plunger here. It doesn't work. It's a brilliant idea. There's a magnet in the cap which attaches there, and it should allow you to drag that down and up. I'm not going to even attempt it because I've got ink in there at the moment still, and I know it doesn't work, so what's the point in trying to show you? Just doesn't work. That plunger, that's just stuck where it is. Other issues that I've got with this pen, let me just try and get it into the focus area. I don't know if you can see that up here, that little finial that should be in there, that came out. I don't know where it is. I've searched the house. I think it's gone up the vacuum cleaner nozzle, which is a shame because I'm a bit loath now to use the pen. What I'm going to do is once I've emptied this, I'm actually going to see if I can put some liquid glue or something in there to actually block it up permanently. Let's take a quick look at the nib. The nib, you know, it's just one of those standard PenBBS nibs. It's a nice nib. Most of the time, I don't have any problem with a PenBBS nib, apart from the 456 that we talked about earlier. So as a result of all this, I can only, in good conscience, put this at position number 4. So let's just move that to the side. So position number 4 goes to my PenBBS 487. And as I say, that's a shame because it really is one of my favourite pens. So let me just move the paper up so we can get to the bottom. At position number 3. Well, the last 3, to be honest, I really struggled to justify which one should go where because I really enjoyed all of them. If I could, I'd quite happily put each of these at position number 1. But the whole idea of ranking is I'm going from 7 through to a 1. So at position number 3, I'm going to give it to this one. This is a Jinhao 200. It's a gorgeous pen to look at. I don't know how well this comes over on the camera, but you've got different tones like honeys and browns, all the way through to some greys, some blacks, bit of white in there. And look at the chatoyancy. If I slowly spin this round, it's just a gorgeous pen to look at and a gorgeous pen to write with. Let's take off there. So it's, for the size of the pen, it's actually not a bad size nib. I think it's number 5. It's just that standard Jinhao type nib. You know, let's turn it over. The section's quite nice. It's smooth. Yes, it's metal, but I don't find that my fingers slip. But can you see where my only issue is? It's so small. It really is. This is a pen that I have to use posted. Posted is perfect. It's not too small, it's not too big, it's fairly light. My wife actually likes this because, again, she actually does use all her pens posted, but this is nice and light for her and she really enjoyed writing with this one. Just pop that back on. So what else can I say? Well, it's a smooth writer. The ink, wow, because it's a fine nib. So the ink lasts and lasts and lasts. I mean, one fill of this being used once a week, quite heavily because I do quite a fair bit of writing when it is its day to be used, but it still lasted a whole month on that one fill of the converter. Really like this. The ink that it's got is it's a new ink to me. It's Diamine Tobacco Sunburst. But again, loved this ink, loved the colouring of it. As you can see here from when we started the month, it's a fairly fast drying ink as well in this pen. Really nice. So that means it goes in at position number 3. So we've got 2 pens left. They're both Jinhaos. We've got a Jinhao 100 or the Jinhao H750. Well, position number 2. As I said, this was really hard. I really struggled to come up with a way of ranking these because I enjoyed using both of them. But I have to give it a ranking. So position number 2 goes to this, which is a Jinhao H750. And this is a medium nib on here. This is it's a heavy pen. My wife, whenever I've asked her to try this one out, she takes one look and she just says, no. It's a fairly heavy pen. You know it's in your hand. Unposted, it's not too bad. It's still a little bit on the short side. Posted, well, it doesn't. So you don't have much of an option with this. You have to use it unposted. But it's fine. It's not too short. The nib. Let's take a quick look at that nib. So again, that's a nice sized nib. I think that's heading towards a number 6. Let me just slowly turn it over. There's the feed. So it's just a plastic feed. The section's not too big, but it's got that little bit of an indentation there, which makes it easy to hold. So, you know, I hold my pens really low down, but I find this really nice and comfortable, especially when I'm writing for a full day. Again, this is one, it lasted the whole month on a single fill. So it's not something that's going to eat through the ink. So just straighten that notepad. I'm being really, really scruffy today. Put this back together. The colour here, this I don't know if you can see, it's got like a bit of stippling on it. It's a black colour. Deliberately went for black with this pen because, you know, you can use virtually any ink in it. The pen does come in a wide variety of finishes and it's really cheap. I don't have the price in front of me, but I think it was under 10 Aussie dollars. You know, it's not an expensive pen and it's one that you could have quite a few of the same pen, and to be honest, I think I may end up with a few more of these. I'd like to try this with a broader nib. Now, when you buy it, you know, you can only usually get fine or medium. So I'm going to look at getting some extra nibs, which I can then hopefully swap into this. That's something for me to play around with in the future. But yeah, really nice pen. It's got the weight to it, the ink flow, it's gorgeous. It writes really well. It's a really reliable writer, and this Aussie Browning, wow, just look at that. I mean, you've got shading coming through. It really is a nice pen to write with. But unfortunately, I have to rank them. So this month, that's at position number 2. So by a process of elimination, we all know that at position number 1 is this one. This is a Jinhao 100 Centennial. This is in the blue version. It's got a medium nib, and this pen, wow, it's a delight to use. Let me show you the nib. So again, look at that nib, a really nice, good sized nib. Very similar. Let me just pop that in so it doesn't roll. I'm going to fetch in that H750 again. There's a lot of similarities between the two. So, you know, they've both got the short section. The nibs are virtually identical. I think the only difference is this one's got a bit of gold on it, whereas that's where the X750 is plain silver. The 100, it's got a little bit more length. Let me just try and line them up. So a little bit longer pen, but it's also a lighter pen because there's not as much metal in it. To hold, as I say, it's got that nice section. It's got a bit of a lip, which I don't quite like, but it's a good size pen. Which, to be honest, given that it's a duofold clone, you know, you expect it to be nice. It's got this gorgeous colour in. Again, let me slowly turn this round so you can see the colour in. You know, we've got light blues, we've got some chatoyancy in there. Really nice pen. In terms of writing, well, yeah, it writes really well. It's lasted again all month, so it's really economical with the ink. It's very, very smooth. I've really enjoyed using this pen. The other thing that I'm finding, and I think this is partly to do with the ink that I chose, this Diamine Sapphire Blue, you see some real character with the pen and the ink from this. I mean, it's not so much showing here, but as I've been using it through the month, it's really come out, and it's such a really nice match for the pen as well. So the result of all that, this goes in at position number 1. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to clear off the mat and I'm going to fetch in all the pens and we'll take one final look at them. So here we have it. This is the 7 pens in the order from my least favourite through to my favourite pen for the month. And as I said at the beginning, remember, I'm just comparing these against each other. I'm not comparing against pens that weren't in use this month. So this is just ranking against what I feel each of these come out with. So at position number 7, we've got the PenBBS 456. Number 6 is the Picasso Pimio 916. At position number 5 is the Jinhao 997. Number 4 is the PenBBS 487. Number 3, Ginhao 200. Position 4 is the Jinhao H750. And then position number 5 is the Jinhao 100. And I would use any of these pens any day. I really enjoyed writing with them all. The only one which needs more work is the PenBBS 456, but I think I know what the issue is there, and I think I can solve that fairly easily. So that's a look at the pens that I've used in March of 2021. Now you may have noticed something. They're all Chinese-made pens, and that was deliberate. So during March, I used Chinese pens only. For April, and the video for that should be coming out in the next couple of days, the 7 pens I've chosen to use in April are all non-Chinese pens. I've got 2 from Japan and then the other 5 are from different countries. So it's going to be interesting to see how they compare against each other rather than looking at them against these Chinese pens. So join me in a few days and we'll take a look at that. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please hit that thumbs up button, give it a like. Do you have any of these pens? Do you have any of these inks? Have you used them together? What are your thoughts on them? Please drop a comment below. I'd love us to kickstart the conversation, because by talking and discussing our thoughts and feelings around pens and inks, well, that's how we all grow. That's how we all learn more about this wonderful world of fountain pens and the fountain pen ink that goes with them. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.